Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Dialog 519. Sri Bhagavan said, the Mahavakyas and their interpretation lead to interminable discussions and keep the minds of the seekers engaged externally. To turn the mind inward, the man must directly settle down in the I. Then there is an end of external activities and perfect peace prevails. Later, a passage from the Yoga Vasishtha was read out before Sri Bhagavan, indicating initiation by touch and initiation by look. Sri Bhagavan observed, Dakshinamurti observed silence when the disciples approached him. That is the highest form of initiation. It includes the other forms. There must be subject-object relationship established in the other dikshas. First the subject must emanate, and then the object. Unless these two are there, how is the one to look at the other or touch him? Mouna Diksha is the most perfect. It comprises looking, touching, and teaching. It will purify the individual in every way and establish him in the reality. The Mahavakyas are aphorisms contained within the Vedas, the Upanishads. Their original purpose is the revelation of Brahman. As such, they express complete knowledge. They reveal self-knowledge. They can truly be comprehended only by abidance in Brahman, abidance in the self. They can be understood only by transcendence of what is conceptual as well as what is perceptible. If, however, they approach with an objectified outlook, they can lead to what Sri Bhagavan says is interminable discussions and keep the minds of the seekers engaged externally. Only if the mind is turned inward, transcendent of thought and speech, do the great sayings, or Mahavakyas, shine. If not, the minds of the seekers are engaged externally. In this case, external refers to objectivity. So the first step in understanding the Mahavakyas and realizing the truth of the self is the turning of the mind inward. To turn the mind inward, the person must directly settle down in the I. That is to say, one must commence self-inquiry. Self-knowledge is not knowledge of some thing. Turn the mind inward and directly settle down in the I, which can never be anything objective. Then there is an end of external activities. And perfect peace prevails. Really, it is an end of the belief in an external world and external activities of the mind and senses. So it is not an end of external activities, but the end of misidentification with the same. The result? Perfect peace prevails. That perfect peace is the original intention of the Mahavakyas. Without directly inquiring into the nature of the self, the I, though all the Mahavakyas can be piled on top of each other, and knowledge still would not dawn. When you turn inward to inquire into the nature of the I, there, the meaning of the great sayings is clear. Perfect peace is the state in which there is no misidentification. Such a state is the aim of self-inquiry. Such is what the Mahavakyas try to reveal. Later, a passage from the Yoga Vasishtha was read out before Sri Bhagavan, indicating initiation by look and initiation by touch. Sri Bhagavan observed, Dakshinamurti observed silence when the disciples approached him. What is the nature of the silence? He observes silence. What does it mean? He abided in his own nature. Transcendent of speech and thought. That is the highest form of initiation. What is that silence? It is free of concepts, free of duality. It is the silence in which being and knowledge are the same. It is entrance into the realization of something inexpressible, yet realizable. This is the highest form of initiation, because there is no duality in it. Because there is no becoming in it, only being. It includes the other forms. That is to say, it is the highest essence of all the forms of initiation. What is initiation? It is always the revelation of something that was not known previously, yet comes to be known. And the means for doing so is called initiation. It is of such a nature that is that in which the definitions of the subject are changed or transcended. There must be subject-object relationship established in the other dikshas. Diksha is initiation. First, the subject must emanate, and then the object. There is a defined I and a defined this. Unless these two are there, the subject and the object, how is one to look at the other or touch him? It cannot happen, can it? Mouna Diksha, silent initiation. The very one that Dakshinamurti instructed the original disciples with. is the most perfect. It comprises looking, touching, and teaching. It will purify the individual in every way and establish him in the reality. That which is to be experienced by the look, that which is to be experienced by the touch, that which is to be experienced by instruction, that purifies the individual in every way. It frees him of his individuality and all the forms of ignorance that come from that. It frees him from illusion and establishes him in the reality. That is the state of permanent self-knowledge, the supreme peace. Dialog 520. An Australian gentleman, Mr. Lohman, is on a visit here. He seems to be studying the Hindu system of philosophy. He started saying that he believed in unity, the jiva is yet an illusion, and so on. Sri Bhagavan replied, "What is the unity you believe in? How can the jiva find a place in it?" The disciple said, "The unity is the absolute." Sri Bhagavan replied, "The jiva cannot find a place in unity." The disciple replied, "But the jiva has not realized the absolute and imagines itself separate." Sri Bhagavan replied, "Jiva is separate because it must exist in order to imagine something." The disciple said, "But it is unreal." Sri Bhagavan replied, "Any unreal thing cannot produce effects. It is like saying that you killed some animal with the horn of a hare. A hare does not grow horns." The disciple replied, "I see the absurdity, but I speak from the physical plane." Sri Bhagavan answered, "You say I. Who is that I? If that is found, you can later say, whose is the illusion?" A little later, Sri Bhagavan replied, "You say you are in the physical plane now. In which plane are you in dreamless sleep?" The disciple said, "I think in the physical plane again." Sri Bhagavan replied, "You say, I think. That means that you are saying it now when you are awake. Anyway, you admit that you exist in sleep, deep sleep, don't you?" The disciple answered, "Yes, but I did not function then." Sri Bhagavan replied, "So then you existed in deep sleep. You are the same one who continues to exist, are you not?" The disciple said, "Yes." Sri Bhagavan said, "With this difference, that you did not function in your sleep. Rather, you are associated with the thinking faculty in your waking state, and you are disassociated from it in sleep. Is it not so?" The disciple said, "Yes." The Maharshi answered, "Which is then your real nature? Is it to be associated with thinking or to be dissociated?" The disciple said, "I see it now, but I was not aware of my being in sleep." Sri Bhagavan answered, "You say so now. You do not say so in your sleep. Or do you deny your being, very existence, in sleep?" The disciple said, "No." The Maharshi replied, "It amounts to this, that you exist in both states. The absolute existence is the self. You are also conscious of the existence. That existence is also consciousness, sat and chit. That is your real nature." The disciple said, "But thinking is necessary even for realization." Sri Bhagavan replied, "That thinking is aimed at the elimination of all thinking." The disciple said, "Owing to my ignorance, I do not realize the absolute existence consciousness." Sri Bhagavan answered, "Who is the I? Whose is the ignorance?" Answers to these questions will alone suffice to prove that you are already realized. Is there anyone who denies his own existence? Or can anyone say that he did not exist in his sleep? Pure existence is thus admitted. The admission also implies consciousness. Thus all men are realized. There is no ignorant man at all. The disciple said, "Yes, I understand, but I have a small question to ask. The state of realization is one of desirelessness. If a human being is desireless, he ceases to be human." Sri Bhagavan replied, "You admit your existence in sleep. You did not function then. You were not aware of any gross body. You did not limit yourself to this body, so you could not find anything separate from yourself. Now in your waking state, you continue to be the same existence with the limitations of the body added. These limitations make you see other objects. Hence arises desire. But the state of desirelessness in sleep made you no less happy than now. You did not feel any want. You did not make yourself miserable by not entertaining desires. But now you entertain desires because you are limited to this human frame. Why do you wish to retain these limitations and continue to entertain desires?" Sri Bhagavan continued, "Does the body tell you that it is there? It is certainly something apart from the body that remains aware. What is it? Do you say that it is the I, meaning the ego, which arises simultaneously with the waking of the individual from sleep? Be it so. The body is not insentient. It is not sentient. The Absolute does not speak. The ego does. One does not aspire for liberation in sleep. The aspiration arises only in the waking state. The functions of the waking state are those of the ego, which is synonymous with the I. Find out who this I is. On doing so and abiding as I, all these doubts will be cleared up. The instruction began with Sri Bhagavan raising the question, what is the unity you believe in? The disciple believes in the One. What is that One or unity? The seeker also believed that he was a jiva, an individual being. So Sri Bhagavan said to him, how can the jiva find a place in it? If reality is absolutely one, how can there be space for an individual entity in it? There is no room for the ego in reality. The disciple had responded to that though, saying the unity is the absolute. And Sri Bhagavan instructed, the jiva cannot find a place in unity. If individuality could find a place in unity, the unity would no longer be one, and so would not be unity at all. The disciple then said, but the jiva has not realized the absolute and imagines itself separate. Sri Bhagavan gave the instruction, jiva is separate because it must exist in order to imagine something. If one clings to the notion of being an individual, one then can imagine all else. Does the individual exist? if we say it imagines itself so, Sri Bhagavan is saying that it must already exist in order to imagine. If one really knew it was imaginary, it would not exist at all. The disciple had then said, but it is unreal. Sri Bhagavan then declared, any unreal thing cannot produce effects. Or we may say the effect would be unreal, which is to say it would not exist at all. Bhagavan said it is like saying that you killed some animal with the horn of a hare. A hare does not grow horns. Likewise is it with the illusory existence of the jiva or individual being. When this was said to him, the disciple then replied, I see the absurdity. Seeing what is absurd concerning illusion or ignorance is the first good step in destroying it. The disciple then said, but I speak from the physical plane. What can that be? That plane is composed of a jiva or an ego, a world, any objective thing. Sri Bhagavan instructed him, you say I. Who is that I? I speak from this plane, I speak by this imagination. I have an ego I, etc. For whom are all these? Who is that I? If that is found, you can later say, whose is the illusion? You say you are in the physical plane now. In which plane are you in dreamless sleep? The questioner then said, I think in the physical plane again. Sri Bhagavan replied, you say, I think. That means that you're saying it now when you are awake. Anyway, you admit that you exist in deep sleep, don't you? Thinking is merely part of the waking state of mind. What is the self when not conceived in a state of mind? If this cannot be immediately grasped, examine your existence in contrast between the waking state and the sleep state. Deep sleep. Anyway, you admit that you exist in deep sleep, don't you? There is a sensation of all thinking and all objects and the body and the entire physical plane in deep sleep. Yet you exist. What is that existence? The disciple had then said, "Yes, but I did not function then." Sri Bhagavan continues to drive the seeker more inward. Says, "So then you existed in deep sleep. You are the same one that continues to exist, are you not?" The disciple affirmed, "Yes." And Sri Bhagavan replied, "With this difference, that you did not function in your sleep. Rather, you are associated with the thinking faculty in your waking state, and you are disassociated from it in sleep. Is it not so?" The disciple responds, "Yes." Can an existence have a function? Such function as thinking, doing, perceiving. Or is not the existence clearly beyond all that? Sri Bhagavan continued, "Which is then your real nature? Is it to be associated with thinking or to be disassociated?" If you were a thinker, you would always be thinking and there would be no interruption in thinking. But whatever is real, whatever you are, and you are continuously so, has no interruption. Which is then your real nature? Is it to be associated with thinking or to be disassociated? The disciple further questioned, "I see it now, but I was not aware of my being in sleep." Sri Bhagavan replied, "You say so now. You do not say so in your sleep. Or do you deny your being, your very existence in sleep?" Sri Bhagavan continued, "It amounts to this, that you exist in both states. The absolute existence is the self. You are also conscious of the existence. That existence is also consciousness. Sat and Chit. That is your real nature." The disciple went on with, but thinking is necessary even for realization. Sri Bhagavan replied, that thinking is aimed at the elimination of all thinking. What is such thinking? When there's an apparent use of thought in order to dive deeply in meditation while inquiring into the self. Its aim is the elimination of the very belief that thought exists. The disciple had then said, owing to my ignorance, I do not realize the absolute existence consciousness. Sri Bhagavan turns him inward though, saying, who is the I? Whose is the ignorance? Answers to these questions will alone suffice to prove that you are already realized. Is there anyone who denies his own existence? You can never deny your existence. Your existence always exists. Can anyone say that he did not exist in his sleep? Pure existence is thus admitted. The admission also implies consciousness. Existence consciousness is what you are, and it's what you already are. Whatever seems as if otherwise should be examined, inquiring what is the nature of the one who sees such. Thus all men are realized. There is no ignorant man at all. We'll finish this dialogue next time. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Shanti.